Close your eyes for a moment. Feel the heat first. Not the dry, clean heat of summer, but something wet and suffocating. The kind that presses against your chest like a hand. Now breathe in. The air in Manhattan in July of 1863 doesn't smell like freedom. It smells of horse manure baking on cobblestones, of open sewers running black between the tenements, of coal smoke and rotting fish from the docks. And underneath all of it, something sharper, something human. The smell of 800,000 people packed into an island with nowhere to go. You are standing on a street corner in the 9th Congressional District, somewhere between the slaughterhouses of the West Side and the half-finished skeleton of Central Park. Around you, men in worn linen shirts are gathering in tight clusters, speaking in low, urgent voices. Some are holding newspapers. Their faces are not angry yet. They are still in the stage that comes before anger, the stage of disbelief. This morning, the names of the first men conscripted under the new Federal Enrollment Act were read aloud at the draft office on 3rd Avenue. By noon, every Irish laborer in Manhattan knew what the law actually said. And what it said was simple and devastating, and designed, whether anyone admitted it or not, to protect the people who owned this city while sending everyone else to die at Gettysburg. In 4 days, New York will burn. This is how it begins. To understand what is about to happen, you have to walk this city as it actually is, not as the guidebooks describe it, but as it feels beneath your feet. Start at the Battery, where the harbor breathes its salt air over the financial district, and move north. The contrast hits you within 2 blocks. On Broadway, the marble facades of the new commercial palaces gleam in the July sun. The dry goods empires of A.T. Stewart draw carriages from uptown, their horses brushed and gleaming. A gentleman in a silk cravat pays $2 for a single lunch. 2 blocks east on Water Street, a family of 7 lives in a basement room with no windows, paying $4 a month for the privilege of sleeping on straw. The building above them houses 40 other families. The building next to that one houses 60. These are the Irish tenements of Lower Manhattan, and they are not what poverty looks like in storybooks. They are dense, loud, alive, and held together by a ferocious community logic. Women run street economies from their stoops. Children work as newsboys and bootblacks from the age of 6. The men work the docks, the slaughterhouses, the construction sites, the brutal infrastructure of a city that is growing faster than its own conscience. Head north along 7th Avenue and the architecture shifts again. Here, on the blocks between 41st and 51st Streets, the Vanderbilt mansions rise in Italian Renaissance limestone. William Henry Vanderbilt's residence on 5th Avenue has a ballroom that seats 200. His annual income in 1863 exceeds $1 million. The men who built that ballroom earn $1.50 a day. And then there is what no longer exists. Just south of where Central Park now begins, where the great lawn sits manicured and quiet today, there was once a neighborhood called Seneca Village, a community of free black homeowners, more than 250 people, who had built churches, schools, and a life of stubborn dignity in the middle of Manhattan. The city demolished it in 1857 to build the park. They called the residents squatters. They offered no compensation. The land beneath the most famous park in the world was taken by eminent domain from the people who had no political power to refuse. This is the city that is about to explode. The law that lit the fuse was called the Enrollment Act of 1863, and it contained a single sentence that changed everything. Any man drafted could pay a $300 commutation fee to avoid service entirely. $300. For a dock worker making $1.50 a day, that was more than 6 months of uninterrupted labor. For a Vanderbilt, it was the cost of a dinner party. The newspapers of the wealthy called it a necessary measure. The Irish language press called it what it was, a blood tax on the poor. The message encoded in that clause was not subtle. The republic you are being asked to die for values your life at exactly $300 less than the life of a man who can afford to buy his way out. But there is a second layer to this anger, one that the politicians and the newspapers of 1863 understood very well and exploited with precision. The Irish working class of New York was not simply afraid of dying in Virginia. They were afraid of what happened if the Union won. 4 million enslaved people freed in the South meant, in their economic calculus, 4 million workers moving north, competing for the exact jobs, the docks, the construction sites, the domestic service positions, that Irish immigrants had spent a generation bleeding to claim. This fear was not born in a vacuum. It was cultivated. Democratic Party operatives, newspaper editors, and ward bosses had spent years telling Irish workers that abolition was a threat to their livelihoods. They called Lincoln's war a rich man's war and a poor man's fight. They placed the black community of Manhattan, already vulnerable, already despised by the city's power structure, directly in the path of Irish working-class rage. It was a strategy as old as inequality itself. When the powerful become the target, redirect the anger downward. Monday, July 13th. The draft office on 3rd Avenue and 46th Street opens at 9 in the morning. By 10, the crowd outside numbers in the thousands. Someone throws a paving stone. The office is destroyed within the hour. The telegraph lines connecting police precincts are cut. The mob, and it is a mob now, several thousand men moving with terrifying collective purpose, begins to move downtown. They burn the office of the Tribune, which supported the draft. They attack the homes of Republican officials. They drag black men from the streets and hang them from lampposts. 11 black men are lynched in 4 days. Some are set on fire while still alive. Then comes the moment that no history of this city can explain away or soften into context. At 5 o'clock on Monday afternoon, the crowd surrounds the colored Orphan Asylum on 5th Avenue, between 43rd and 44th Streets. Inside are 233 children, none older than 12. The superintendent, William Davis, leads every child out through the back as the mob pours through the front. The building is looted and burned to the ground in 40 minutes. One child, a small girl who hid under a bed and was left behind, is beaten to death. The army arrives on Thursday, not from training camps or garrisons, from Gettysburg. Regiments still caked in the mud and blood of the 3-day battle are marched directly into Manhattan. They bring artillery. They fire canister shot into the crowds on 1st and 2nd Avenues. By Saturday, the city is quiet. The official death toll is listed at 119. Historians estimate the true number may be closer to 500. The draft resumes 3 weeks later. The wealthy pay their $300. The poor go to war. Walk down 3rd Avenue today and there is nothing to tell you that a government building was burned to the ground on this block in the summer of 1863. Nothing marks the site on 5th Avenue, where 233 children ran for their lives through a back door. The colored Orphan Asylum relocated to Riverdale, then to a suburb, then dissolved quietly into history. The names of the 11 men lynched in those 4 days were not recorded in any official document. They were simply erased. But look closer at the city, and the draft riots are everywhere. The police department that was overwhelmed and outnumbered in July of 1863 was reorganized, militarized, and given expanded powers in the years that followed, a direct response to the fear of urban unrest that has never fully left the institution. The demographics of Manhattan's neighborhoods, the geography of who lives where and why, were shaped in part by the violence of that week, as black New Yorkers moved north to Harlem and beyond, pushed by terror as much as drawn by opportunity. And the $300 clause, that single sentence, echoes forward in ways that should make you uncomfortable. The logic that allowed the wealthy to purchase exemption from the obligations of citizenship did not die with the Civil War. It simply changed its uniform. The streets the rioters walked are still there. The inequality that created them never left. The question that 4 days of fire in 1863 left unanswered is the same one that Manhattan, and every city built on the same blueprint of ambition and exclusion, is still trying to answer today. When the system that protects the powerful asks the powerless to die for it, and the powerless finally refuse, who exactly is the enemy? And is the answer ever the one we're told it is?